Welcome to the fourth lecture of Language and IT, Language and Information Technology. We will continue today talking about CAL evaluation, judgmental evaluation today. We spoke or talked about it briefly last time. Today we are going to dive in this judgmental and empirical evaluation. So today is about judgmental evaluation. Methods of evaluation. We have two methods of evaluation, as I said last time. Either it is judgmental evaluation and empirical evaluation. Judgmental means, let me repeat, that you use your own judgment of the software holistically. That means you give your general impression about the software, you use it, or you check it for yourself, and then you would say, well, this is good or this is bad. This is one step. Another step, no, you have what is called a checklist. Someone would have a checklist. For example, you have language, is it good or not? Content, is it enough or not? Readability, can students understand the language? For example, the number of exercises. You would have different checklists, as we are going to see in today's class and in the next class. So this is one way of judgmental evaluation. And then the empirical evaluation, as I said, you use the software in real-time situation with the students and learners, and after time you give your own judgment or evaluation. So this is number one, introspective judgmental evaluation checklists. We are going to study each term individually. Introspective means it's coming from your own judgment. Judgment evaluation, we know. Checklist, as I said, you have some sort of some criteria, and then you check what's applicable or not to your software. So there are two broad types of way of actually executing evaluation studies, A and B here, as I mentioned. In many ways, A suits situations 1 and 2 above. B suits situation 3, Chapel 2001, page 53. So we have three situations here. 1 and 2 would suit them, the judgmental evaluation. Situation 3 would suit the method B, which is empirical evaluation. So let's start with definition of introspective. Or introspection means relying on one's own judgment, experience, and maybe published consensus on what should be there, what is good or bad, or acquisition language theory, AL theory. So this is introspection. Either you rely on your experience because you are experts in the field, or you have some sort of good experience to enable you to judge, because not everyone can judge. You need to have some experience, some knowledge, some expertise. Or maybe you would rely on literature or other textbooks. You read other textbooks and then you rely on them to judge the suitability of the software. Or sometimes you rely on, as I said, SLA, second language acquisition theories. So this is introspection. So this is situation number 1, A1. Evaluation can be done purely individually, subjectively, globally, and introspectively. As I said, you would take the software by yourself, individually, subjectively, introspectively, and boom, you give your own judgment. The teacher simply looks through the material, or in our case, tries out the program, or just reads the blurb about it in a catalog, and comes to an overall intuitive judgment about whether it would suit their class or what class it would suit. Yes, you have a program, an application. Either you would use it. It's like with your phone. If you download a game or an application, what we would do? First, you would read the description, the blurb. In our case, you would read the description. You want to look at the pictures of the application, what it does for you, what it can give you, what it can offer you. Maybe sometimes it's not enough for you to judge whether to download that application in your phone or not. You would need to use it. So sometimes you download the application, you use it, and then you would say, well, this is not good at all. I wish I've not downloaded that application. So this is evaluation. Or sometimes we would say, well, no, this is a very good application. You would write a review on it in the internet. Sometimes you would separate it out, share it with your students, with your friends, with your family. Why? Because you felt it is good. So this is evaluation, introspection, evaluation, or introspective evaluation. When teachers evaluate in this way, it may help in part to try to place themselves in the role of some type of learner using the material. So in this case, if you want to use it, don't put yourself in the role of a teacher. No, put yourself in the shoes of learners. Think of it as a learner, not as a teacher, so you can reach a good, fair judgment. When trying out a CAL program, it is especially useful often to make deliberate mistakes to see how the program responds, give wrong answers and press the wrong keys, etc. Well, yes, this is one way of evaluating. Try to see what might go wrong with the applications. Do not answer the correct answer. Try wrong answers to see just how it responds to you, how it interacts with you. Press the wrong keys. If it says, for example, press the right arrow, press the left arrow. If it says, for example, continue to load, press, for example, cancel. Try to use all the functions in the application before you judge it. This could be described as the global expert judgment method of evaluation. The evaluator introspects and somehow assesses an analyzed notion of some users of the software and an analyzed impression of the software and matches the two using often inexplicit criteria. Well, yes, as I said, this is global, the expert judgment. It involves nothing but a global judgment. You use something and you give out your own judgment. Situation number 2, however, to regard evaluation as in any way systematic, it is necessary at the very least to unpack this armchair approach a bit. Well, it's like an armchair approach. There is nothing, there is no analysis on it. You just give general impression about it. In situation number 2, no, we need to unpack all of this, and we try to look at the details of the software. The teacher or anyone else acting alone as evaluator should break down the overall or global judgment into parts. And this is what I said. You need to break it down into parts. This means looking carefully at different aspects of the materials separately, thinking of all the relevant different aspects of the learning situation, learners, potential, use, etc., judging aspects of in respect of judging aspects of A in respect of B, broken down into points. This last, in part, resembles the process of assessing content validity often talked about in language testing. One can check on an achievement test by analyzing the aspects of language tested and comparing them with what the syllabus or the teaching course before the test covered. Well, we don't want to go into this detail because I am specialized in language testing, and if I start talking about language testing, I will not finish until tomorrow morning. So better not to talk about language testing here. But what's important here, that you need to break down the overall judgment into parts. Look at the content. Does it suit your objectives? Look at the learners. Does it suit their level? Look at different aspects of the program before you give your own judgment. Well, so it says here, so here, the summary of a whole series of introspective judgments of specific aspects is more reliable than one global one. So it's more reliable to do this analyzed, detailed judgment than your own global judgment. So here comes the checklists. So this is where checklists come in. There are written records of the sort of breakdowns just described. So there are some checklists available in the internet and different books and articles, research. You can use them. You can adapt them. You can see, well, this, I think, a very comprehensive checklist. I am going to use it for my software. So they may be made by the teacher. You can design your own if you have the expertise, if you are expert, or adapted from someone else. As I said, you can adapt from the internet, from other people famous in the field like Chappell and other people. They at least provide a way of ensuring that important aspects do not get forgotten and that there is some consistency if the same person evaluates several things. So this is a very good advantage of using checklists. If you use a well-designed checklist from other people, you would ensure that you did not forget anything in the checklist, number one, and it would be consistent and reliable. Every time you use the checklist with the same software by different people, by different teachers, by different users, at least you would get the same evaluation or the same results. However, the evaluation still remains individual, introspective, and maybe pretty subjective. Yes, again, although we use checklists, questionnaire or whatever, it is still individual. It's done only by you. Even if it is done by 2 or 3, still individual, introspective, still, and maybe subjective. Even if you use checklists, sometimes you would be biased and still you would say, I don't like this software. Even if it scores 90% out of 100% in this checklist, still I would give it less than 90. Why? Because it is subjective. Checklists generally take the form of sets of headings to be considered or sets of questions to ask oneself. Yes, so it's the checklist, either headers, as I said, language content, suitability to the learners, practicality, blah, 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 or a set of questions. Is the software good? Does it suit your learners? The level of the language, is it good or bad? We will see some examples, inshallah, in the next class, inshallah, some examples of these questions. They may or may not include a system for weighting different elements or adding up a total score in some way. So sometimes you don't need to put a score or a weight for each element in the checklist. For example, you don't need to give, for example, language content 10%, suitability to the learners 50%. No, you don't need. You just evaluate without giving scores. So I know for Carl are the list of points in Jones and Fortescue and the more recent and systematic framework by Odell, Leach, and Candlin recently. So these all two lists of CAD software. One is by Jones and Fortescue, and the other one is by Odell, Leach, and Candlin. These two examples, you can look at them in the internet. Recently, Chapel, this is the one we are going to study in more detail, and the one that I like. Recently, Chapel has a set of 6 points formed from an SLA research perspective, 2001. John Roberts has a much bigger collection of such checklists used in general materials evaluation, which is applied to CAL materials evaluation. However, many published checklists strike one as a rather miscellaneous collection of points or questions, not clearly distinguishing between A and B and C above, and not obviously exhausting the types of points that should be considered, or organizing them in a motivated way. Yes, most of these checklists are considered to be miscellaneous. There is no systematic way of presenting these checklists, and most of them can be trying to be exhaustive of all the points regarding program or CAD program evaluation. For teachers, often the checklist-based evaluation just described is the only one feasible. Yes, this is very feasible for teachers to do the judgmental. The empirical, as I said, needs effort and time, since it's the one that can be done quickly and easily, and before the material have been extensively used or even bought. Well, yes, this is very important. With this type of evaluation, it's quick, easy, and it can be done before you buy or used by the learners. Imagine that you give a bad program to the learners, it's going to be a disaster. Why? They would criticize the program. They would put a lot of claims. They would try to speak all the bad things about the application that you gave to them before you evaluated, and you don't want that to happen. So this is very important, that with teachers, the judgmental evaluation is quicker and easier for you. It can be enhanced by incorporating the views arrived at in a similar way, perhaps of more than one person. The teacher can get other teachers to do the same sort of evaluation, or read reviews in journals, etc. This makes it less individual, though still introspective and rather subjective. Yes, as I said, even if you involve more than one teacher, it can be helpful, useful, good. Do it. Ask your colleagues, ask your teachers to help you, but still introspective and subjective, and no practical side of it, no empirical side of it. Situation 3. Additionally, the teacher may enhance the checklist approach if she has the time and energy by doing things that in a loose sense could be called research. Yes. Imagine that you are a teacher, you did the judgmental evaluation, and then you would say, well, I would try to enhance this by making a research. Maybe a master's degree, maybe a PhD degree, whatever, or just a normal research. You would say, well, I would do a complete research before I go to classroom, before I implement the software. I don't want just global judgment. I don't want checklists, analytical judgment. No, a third one I would do before I use the application is research. I would do a full research to evaluate the software. By this I mean looking systematically with some analytical techniques, etc., at aspects under A or B head above, not just deciding what they are on an instance introspective basis. This may focus more on the A side, a linguistic analysis of the structures used in the content of the program. If it is fixed, checking the frequency level of the vocabulary against a standard reference list, grading the exercise types that are incorporated on a recognized scale of task difficulty. So you may want to go deeper and do a real research, and you check the linguistics analysis. You check structure, whether it conforms with the with your students' ability. You would check vocabulary against some other vocabulary and see whether they are graded in terms of difficulty, graded from simple words to difficult words, simple vocabulary to difficult vocabulary. So all of these ways to do a real research with CAL programs. This might be called materials analysis. Yes, it is called materials analysis, or it may focus on the B side, finding out what the syllabus for the current year actually says my learner should be doing an analysis of learners' needs or interests, finding out what the school budget actually has available, etc. This is, in effect, analysis of the learning-teaching situation. So you may take it to the other extreme, to the other side, and you check your learners' needs. You ask them, what do you want? They would say, for example, I want to speak English fluently. So you would say, well, I need to think of a program that helps them speak fluently. You may want to check your school budget. Do they have money to buy that software for you? So it is called situation analysis. You analyze the situation, learner and the teaching situation. These are all things that might appear on a checklist, and of course can all alternatively be decided by the evaluator just off the top of his hair or his head. Further, with respect especially to C, the suitability judgment itself, this may bear some research in the form of reading up what theory, research studies, and so forth have to say. You have a program with certain characteristics, and you want to use it with young learners, as the publishers indeed claim it is suited to be. Instead of just relying on one's own judgment of what is suitable, one can read up what the collective wisdom of psychologists, educators, etc. have to say about what the characteristics are of young learners, and so what suits them. Well, one way to do it is go to psychology books and read about what suits young learners. Do not rely on what is written on the program descriptions or what is written on the program box. Go and check for yourself. They would say, well, this is suitable for 2 years and plus, or 3 years and plus. And you would read the description. It involves blah, 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 blah. You can go by yourself and check psychology books, education books about young learners, and make sure that what they say is correct. Because sometimes with commercial products, they are after money, not after efficiency or effectiveness of teaching. So you need to go to check for yourself. Similarly, the general wisdom on how to construct multiple choice items in books on testing may help evaluate the suitability of multiple choice items in CAL package. Yes, check books about language testing and see whether the multiple choice, if there are any multiple choice in the program, are suitable, are well written. Sometimes they are badly written because the designer has nothing to do with language, the designer of the application or program. Research studies of the way learners use CAL, teaching with CAL. Yes, you can check research and books, articles about the use of CAL, how people from other different parts of the world use CAL program and CAL software. This is very important. Try to rely on other experiences, other people experiences or past experiences in using the same or CAL in general. And indeed, if a program is supposedly designed to aid reading, the general wisdom on the teaching of reading, yeah, well, yes. So if it is the program about reading, read about reading. If it is about listening, read about listening. If it is about vocabulary, read about vocabulary. However, there is always the danger that supposedly general research findings do not actually apply in your situation for some reason. Well, yes, sometimes you don't have the same situation, so you have a problem. Other people in Japan, in America, they have different situations from your own, so their findings cannot be applicable to yours. But if you are using the checklist approach, there are some key things not to forget. This is very important. Be explicit about where the list comes from. This is very important. You need to mention where you took the checklist from, which existing one is being used, adapted, and have as many detailed subsections as possible. Make sure whatever system list you use covers all three of the A, B, and C aspects. So refer to the source of your checklist. Cover the A aspect, a description of detailed aspects of how the program works with examples of actual items, screens, etc., and what it does has to be incorporated since the reader cannot be assumed to be familiar with the software. Well, in your analysis, give a detailed description of the software, how it works. Give us some screenshots, snapshots, because the reader of your research might not be familiar with the software. When I told you about the grammar software in maybe lecture number 2, I'm sure maybe most of you haven't heard about the software before, so I gave you some video and snapshots about the software. So this is very important. If part of what you are evaluating is particular task that is not part of the software itself or some language element supplied by the teacher, make that clear, but that alone is not an evaluation. So if you add exercises, just say that you added exercises, although this is not evaluation. Cover the B aspect. Give a full account of imagined or real target learners. Well, either you would say, well, the hypothesized or imagined learners are to be, for example, in grade 3 or 4 in school, or maybe you have a real target learners. Mention them in a situation or in a particular country at a particular level. Evaluation for some generalized learner is not very convincing. Don't say, well, I'm evaluating for general learners. No, you need to have specific, either real or imagined learners. Don't forget C, explanation of how each feature of the program A does or does not fit. This needs to be supported wherever possible by more than your expert intuition reference to applied linguistic concepts, research, models, etc. So try to say, well, this would not fit my learners. Why? Because the theory of second language acquisition would say that blah, 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 blah. So you need to connect all this to the theory and past literature. The actual organization of the write-up of such an evaluation can be done several ways. The most popular and sensible probably is to describe A fully in advance and the relevant research theory background to C. Then go through a systematic set of A points, different aspects of the materials, giving a clear description of each aspect and the actual evaluation C of each in relation to B. So this is the sensible way. You give general descriptions, past literature, you connect A with C, and then you talk about your situation, your learners, B in relation to the theories from C. Some people use the overt structure of the specific materials themselves as the A basis for proceedings instead of having a prior idea of what categories to look at. I'm not going to, that's in some ways as easier, but of course, instead of the evaluator imposing a relevant set of categories of things to look at. Forget about all of this. It's not. The idea is, ask yourself, if you are going to Banda store, and then you have a checklist of the things that you want to buy, and another time where you don't have a checklist. Just compare the two things. How you are going to buy. If you have a checklist or you don't have a checklist, you just go to the shelves and pick the ones, you remember the ones that you wanted to buy. Just compare the two things. And here comes the importance of having checklists. Methods of evaluation. B, empirical evaluation. Other methods of evaluation generally require much more work and for the materials to have been used for some time by learners in actual classes. Compare situation 3. So they are often firmly fixed in a specific teaching learning situation. However, they do move away from the purely introspective approach. So we are here moving from the introspective approach to the practical approach, to the empirical approach. I take the program, give it to my students for 2 or 3 months, a whole semester, and then I judge the software after the end of the semester. So it's not like the judgmental introspective before you use the software. Maybe you do it in 1 or 2 weeks. No, you need a full semester, a full classroom to give out the program. These are the ones that incorporate activities that are just like those we would otherwise regard as typical of regular empirical research or measurement, surveys, and etc. They may entail using questionnaires and interviews, systematically observing, eliciting, think aloud data from software users or testing users. Well, so in the empirical method, it might involve questionnaires. You give your students questionnaires about the suitability of the software. Do you like it? What is bad about it? What is good? Did you do this? Didn't you do that? Blah, blah, blah. So this is questionnaire. Or interview. You ask them some questions. How about the software? Did you like the software? What did you do with the software? What is bad about the software? And then they give you some feedback. So questionnaires, interviews, sometimes observing. You go around the classroom and you observe how they are using the software of the program, eliciting think aloud. You ask them to think aloud while they are playing with the program or doing the program. You can elicit something from their think aloud. They may mean doing studies, experimental or not, comparing the success of one material against another and so forth. So sometimes you would think, well, let's make it like an experiment. I have 2 classrooms. I use with this classroom a CAL program, and with this no CAL program, just paper and pencil. Or the same classroom, you split them into 2 groups. So you might think of doing an experiment like this. Or indeed doing action research with CAL. See Chapel, blah, 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 The Power of CAL, and other books that are useful for this purpose. In themselves, these research type activities are non-evaluative in the sense considered here, except action research. They are best seen as scientific means of gathering facts and testing hypotheses, which can then either remain as cold statements of fact about what the effectiveness of the materials is or what people's opinions about them are, or be exploited for practical ends as part of an evaluation exercise. So this is just saying that all of these means, interviews, questionnaires, observing, are tools for eliciting some data. They are not evaluative. The evaluation comes from you. You read all the things and the evaluation comes from you. Examples. There are some examples. Doing a survey of teachers, learners who have used the material, and finding out how they use it, the difficulties, their attitudes towards the program, to the interest and usefulness of the content tasks. Checklists can come in here again. One can base a questionnaire to users around the same set of A and B points that might otherwise be the points one asks oneself about in A and above. So, an example, you have a survey, questionnaires, and or so checklist. You give it to the teachers, to the learners, after they use the software to gather their opinions, attitudes about the program. Observing a class using the program, taping and making systematic notes on their difficulties, actions, strategies, what they say, the teacher's involvement, etc. Or one can ask learners to keep a diary of their reactions. You observe a classroom, you tape it, videotape it, and you see how students use it, the difficulties, the teacher's involvement with the software. Is there a lot of involvement from the teacher? Means, well, students have a difficulty with the program. If a teacher involved a lot, there is a problem. If there is less interaction from the teacher, well, maybe it means it's a good program, and it might mean, well, no, there is a problem with the program because there is no involvement from the teacher. So you may videotape the classroom, and then you take some notes about the program, the actions, the strategies that the students use with the program. Or you can ask the learners, please write a diary about the actions that you do with the program, and then you collect these diaries and you analyze them. Getting the computer to store records of actions performed by learners using a program and analyzing them to infer learner strategies and processes. Well, there are certain programs that record every single movement from the learners, and then you can take all of these records and analyze them. It can record how many words they wrote. It can record the processes that you use. Do they, for example, use a spell checker? Did they deleted lines or words? It can record everything for your learners, and then from all of these data, you can evaluate the program. Revisions when word processing, as I said, whether they revise or access the spell checker, whether they access an online dictionary or glossary to help them in reading. And here we have some examples. The classic research comparison of those using one program with those using another, differing in a small or large way, or no program. As I said, two groups, no program with one program, or the same class, you split them into two groups. So it's a comparison of computer and non-computer equivalent groups over a period of time. Not only just one class, but over a period of time, 1 month, 2 months, to give a proper evaluation with before and after test to check on how much has been learned. Yes, you would give them a test before you start, and then a test after you finish your experiment to see their scores. Are they rising or are they falling? If they are rising, well, your the software or program is effective. If A-type and B-type evaluation are both done, the connection between the two needs to be spelled out. Well, if you do the judgmental evaluation, which is method A, with method B, the empirical evaluation, you need to spell out the connection between the two. Are they matching? Are they differing? Or are they matching with some differences? Or are they totally differing with some matches? You need to say this. If the A evaluation resulted in adoption of the software, did the B evaluation show that was a good decision or not? Well, let's say that you decided that from method A, the judgmental evaluation, that the software, the program is very good. After you did the empirical evaluation, was that true? Was your decision from the first place correct or not? This is need to be spelled out. If it is confirming your decision, well, that's perfect. That means that you did the evaluation properly. But if it's not matching, you need to see where the problem lies. I think this is it for today class. I will see you inshallah next class with more about CAL evaluation. Thank you very much and all the best.